Sorry, I've made you bring this with you.
No, it's totally fine.
Well, hello everyone, and it's just such a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much, wonderful music centre here that is a complete revelation to me. Thank you so much for inviting me to come and have this conversation with Maya, which is going to be a huge pleasure for me. So thank you all so much for being here for this, and thank you, Maya, very, very much. It's just wonderful to be here with you again.
Thank you so much for coming here, Venetia. It's so kind of you. Thank you. I was so happy to have you here.
So, Maya, just the other night, I was just about to nod off to sleep when I was listening to the World Service, and I heard this amazing program which was called Emotional Baggage, and somebody extraordinary interviewing you, Henrietta Bowden Jones. It was very, I don't know if any of the rest of you heard this. You can find it on the World Service. It was really absolutely extraordinary. And I wanted to kick off with something actually you said right at the end of that, where you said, playing music is my home. So first of all, just tell us about this home. Tell us about the place that you grew up in Damascus, in the flat overlooking the hills. Just give us a sense of that Damascus that is your home.
Yes, so thank you. I grew up in a pre-constructed flat. Actually, I grew up between two places. So half of my time I would spend in my house in the mountains, overlooking chains of mountains and valleys, absolutely gorgeous. And but I grew up and I was born in this flat overseeing the Jabal al-Sheikh, basically, the mountain of al-Sheikh. And I was really blessed to be growing up in a house full of culture, really. My parents, you know, they never played music themselves, but they were huge lovers of the arts. The main components of the house were books. And honestly, I mean, we had like mountains and mountains.
Because your mother's a translator.
My mom is a translator. She translates, still does, translates literature from French to Arabic. You know, philosophy, literature, novels. And my dad is a writer. So yeah, we had, literature-wise and music-wise, we had literature and music from everywhere, literally. You know, I remember just like, you know, spending hours like looking at the shelf and every time discovering something new. And also, you know, the vinyl shelf, which was also off my limit. I'm not allowed.
You weren't allowed to touch the vinyl.
No, vinyl was sacred. My dad would be in trouble if I got near it. But he had such an eclectic collection. It was really amazing because, you know, you'd think like somebody like me growing up in Damascus, you know, they would have a somehow limited access, but we had everything from, you know, Berlin Symphony Orchestra to Miles Davis to Jan Garbarek to, you know, cross-cultural collaborations. I remember like listening with my dad to an African choir trying their version of Johann Sebastian Bach. We had stuff like that in the house, you know. And also, so that was my dad because he was hungry for music. So
was there also Kulthum
and my mum was the one
Fairuz
listening to Kulthum and Fairuz. And my dad loved the classics of the Arab world, but my mum is the one who played the classics the most. So, I mean, I was really lucky to grow up in such an environment because we had listening sessions every night. And every time we would listen to something completely different. And we would just sometimes me and my brother, we would dance to it, would make up stories of like, here is the villain, you know, this is the villain's, you know, melody. Or sometimes we just drew pictures while it was so amazing to absorb all of that time.
So then it was obviously clear that you were that music was part of your life already, and that the time came to choose an instrument. as I understand it, the violin was the first choice. Is that right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I started studying music when I was 6, and when I was 8, I was supposed to pick an instrument. It was like a very important moment.
That's very young to be starting music.
Not really. No, not according to my parents. They just, if they I think if they could have, they would have signed me up sooner, but they wouldn't accept any younger. But yeah, for 2 years we had to study like solfeggio, iqa haraki, which means learning how to embody the rhythm. It was pretty intense if I think about it. It was really...
That's quite dry good for a 6-year-old, isn't it?
It was pretty dry, but I am very grateful to it. You know, we had to like have one exercise from a really famous solfeggio book, and we had to write it every time for like 10 times, and then we had to sing it by heart as well, you know, completely pitch perfect. So we've done that for 2 years, and then, you know, you had to pick a musical instrument, and my parents suggested the violin. And I wasn't very emotionally invested in it, you know. It's
a very tough instrument.
It's a tough instrument, and
I mean, we had Basil earlier this morning.
Yes, he's phenomenal, isn't he?
Those of you who were here earlier.
Chapeau to Basil.
Yes.
I failed at the violin.
No, but it's an interesting thing because the violin is very, very tough, isn't it? And it's only after a certain point that you can kind of get transported by it. So obviously that moment was not there for you.
No, it was not there. So at that point I took a couple of classes, and then I was heading to the Mahad al-Arabi, the Arabic Institute. Now it's called Sulh al-Wadi Institute. And the taxi driver turned the radio on, and there came the sound of this instrument. And I said so excitedly, like, Ammu, what is this instrument? Ammu means uncle. شو هاي الآلة? And هاي الآلة اللي بدي أعزفها, which means this is the instrument I want to play. He laughed at me. He said, this is the qanun, this is an instrument for men, forget about it. And my mother didn't give much weight to the conversation. She kissed me goodbye. She was sitting outside the classroom, reading her book, and little did she know that the head of the institute walks in to the music theory class and announces a qanun class. And he said, anybody interested, follow me. And obviously I ran, and I signed up, to the astonishment of my mum. But yeah, in 2 days we returned the violin. My parents returned the violin, and I had a qanun 5 times my size waiting on the lunch table after school, to my astonishment.
Well, they realised clearly, your parents, that there was no going back once you'd heard the qanun.
It was clear. So it has been.
So what is it about the qanun, when you compare it to the violin, as you were a tiny child, but what was it about the qanun that just listening to it in the taxi, what did it do?
I just fell in love with it. You know, like everything stopped. Nothing existed except that sound. You know, it's like falling in love in a very pure way. And there was an extremely clear sense of belonging, that this is for me.
And so what did that mean then, you know, as you were growing up? I mean, so you went to this mahad, this centre, at the weekend or after school, or
every night.
Every night.
Every night. It was, I mean, my son complains now that he has too much to do, and I just remind him that I had to go to classes every single night. I mean, 5 days a week, and practice and everything.
So was that, Maya, because your parents had a sense that you would become a professional musician? Because that's quite unusual.
I really don't know. I mean, all I know is that we had a house full of visitors, you know, actors, sculptors, musicians, thinkers, writers, and all they did was just perform for us, please. You know, just always giving me these nudges to just continue, even when I didn't want to. You know, like, leave me alone. But I'm so grateful to them for doing that. I really don't know, but I'm really grateful to them for just continuing to push me.
So you were
even
just
when
doing.
I didn't want to.
So you were doing that while you were going to school, taking your regular exams, and university as well.
Yes. So for university, I took an BA in English literature, but also I did a BA in music at the High Institute of Music in Damascus, parallelly. Yeah. So yeah, it was very clear to me that the High Institute of Music is the place that I want to go. It was the dream. So
the dream. So tell us about this instrument. It's a very old instrument? Is it this
particular one?
No, I meant just the qanun.
The qanun. Okay.
The qanun is a.
It's ancient, really. I mean, unfortunately, I've had a lot of talks with historians about the specific history of it. So. Unfortunately, a lot of the facts are missing, and one historian said that because of the treatises that contain a lot of the history were drowned when the Mughals attacked the Alexandria's library. So we just know that some people say that it existed in the form of a nuzha instrument, which is an instrument made of ivory with strings attached on both sides, so that instrument existed in the 4th century BC. Yes, it's a small instrument. And then there is a fairy tale about it in the 1001 Night, that a person took it to a gathering, he played something really joyful, everybody started dancing, and then he played something really sad and everybody was crying, then he played something really soft and mellow and everybody went to sleep. So yeah, I mean, it's connected in the old lore to magic and closely to the human emotion.
But is it an instrument that you find all over?
Yes.
Do you find it in India as well as?
No. So it's an instrument in the Arab world.
It's only Arab world.
Not really. Just also it exists in Azerbaijan, but so the difference is that it's smaller. And obviously also it exists in Turkey and Iran as well. So the Azeri version is smaller and has 2 levers. So the levers are these knobs that you see here. So they are like the black keys on the piano, except for, so when you flick them down, the pitch goes a quarter tone down. And when you flip them up, then the pitch, goes a quarter tone up. So if I show you, yeah, it's fine. So this is Al-Farabi, who is the biggest musicologist in Arabic music, said the tone in Arabic music is a perfect 4 quarters, and the qanun is a perfect example of that because each note has 4 levers. So listen to it. So that's an E. E half flat, which does not exist in Western music. E flat. 3/4 flat. So this was really revolutionary when the levers were added, because before the 20th century, you had to tune each octave on a different. You had to know the song and the maqam modulations. Maqam is the Arabic word for mode. And you had to tune, say, the highest octave on one maqam, the middle octave on a different maqam, and then lowest one on a different maqam, and then just switch. But now all you have to do is just flick levers up and down. Thank God for that.
So it's very much connected to the Arab world.
Very much. It's like considered to be one of the main instruments in the at-takht sharqi, which is the Arabic ensemble. So yeah, it's qanun means law, so it sits at the heart.
And it was an instrument traditionally played by men.
Well, we had that discussion before our event, but no, it wasn't actually. So al-qiyan,
the singing girls.
Yes, so the slave girls and the singing girls. So there was a tradition during the Abbasid era of a collective of women who were slave girls. Obviously, from a perspective of a patriarchal society, they are considered to be, the lowest of members of the society. But their artistic value is really immense, because, imagine there were like big schools of them being trained into learning the mushahat, learning how to play instruments, making and reciting poetry, and they disseminated, you know, the heritage, because they would be gifted or sold. So every time somebody would, one of these qainas will go somewhere else, then they would just transmute it. And many of these qiyan play qanun. And I mean, I can't put my finger down on what happened, because I think I have a theory about it, is that, you know, it became not acceptable for women to play. So women continued to play it in secret, basically. There are old photos of a Syrian doctor, absolutely gorgeous, wearing, you know, this very ornate headset and holding her qanun with her. So they obviously, you know, play the instrument, but not on a public stage.
But when the taxi driver said to you, this is not an instrument for girls, this is an instrument for men.
Yeah.
So what was it about it then that, or is it just that there aren't that many female musicians?
I mean, it didn't matter really. I knew that this is what I wanted to do, and nothing that he said mattered really. And obviously I had some, you know, eyebrows raised and all of that during my career, you know, or sometimes people just go like, you know, like for instance, in Arabic music, you're considered to be a good musician if you know how to do a taqsim. Taqsim is the art of improvisation. It's, you know, the supreme art of storytelling in Arabic music. And you know, I had players, you know, sort of like wink at me saying, "Shall I do it for you?" And I'm like, "I can do it myself, thank you." So yeah, it was, or I had like some comments during my career, but because I had my parents' support, you know, and particularly my father's support, since, you know, the father figure is so important. If he disapproved, then I would not have had any chance. Then it just really didn't matter. So I was really fortunate.
Yeah.
To have the support of parents.
But sort of fast forward, then you did, you know, you've trained, you spent a lot of time in Oman, didn't you? A couple of years
I did.
In Oman. You were teaching. So what do you enjoy teaching?
I love teaching. I mean, it's particularly, you know, in Oman I was teaching maqamat, which is the theory of Arabic music, and the qanun. And, you know, it's so important to me now because I have my online academy, and I feel it's my duty to pass on the heritage to people who love it, because, you know, Arabic music it's an oral tradition. You know, you used to have to learn it by seeking a master and then literally copying him. And there's a lot of trial and error, and so you learn a lot by imitating, but in doing so, there's so much time spent, you know, just failing. And
so what does that theory consist of, then, the theory of the
I mean, it's just an emulation. It all goes back to the voice. So the voice is supreme in Arabic culture. And you just basically have to sing. So if I am your teacher, say in Aleppo, say, I will go like, I'll go, okay, repeat after me, sing after me, and play after me. And I will not explain how I did it, which is quite problematic for people from, you know, say the West. So it has been my passion to break this down and just to make it more accessible. It just brings me so much joy seeing people accessing it.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I want to come to something now, which is like how we first met.
Yes.
Maria, and that's, can we have, Tim, can we have the picture up there? So we first met because, is it now 2 years ago already, that I work at the British Museum, I'm a curator there, and so I organised an exhibition called Reflections, Contemporary Art of the Middle East and North Africa. And it was essentially our collection of works on paper by Middle Eastern artists. And somehow, by some miracle, I'm not quite sure how it happened, but Maya got in touch with the museum, with British Museum, and you'd done something with us before, but I hadn't met you then. And the idea emerged that Maya would make some work out of a couple of pieces in the British Museum. So can you just say something about that, and then we'll talk about this piece?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when I was thinking of the process of finding home, I was thinking, okay, right, so how can I make it happen? And then I was like, okay, I'd love to approach a lot of organizations that I felt at home with and invite them to be partners with me, such as this beautiful place, you know, in making the album. Since I am doing it independently, and since I am, you know, I do not have the resources of a massive label, so I thought, okay, so that's when I contacted somebody from the museum, and they put me in touch with you, and yeah, to be honest with you, I was not sure at the beginning how to do, because I've never composed in direct response to works of art. So I myself was scared, excited, you know, like, okay, how am I going to do this? But yeah, I was so grateful that you gave me the opportunity to do that, you know, because there was a lot of unknown factors, like how is it going to emerge, you know. So,
but it was also a very surreal time, because we were right in the middle of COVID, and the exhibition hadn't opened yet. It was all ready to go, but we couldn't have any visitors until May, I think it was.
Yes.
And so it was quite complicated to arrange all of that. And
absolutely.
So you came in, and so I was absolutely on tenterhooks, like, which works was Maya going to be inspired by?
Yeah.
And in the exhibition, actually, and in the collection, we have a lot of works, it's on paper, by Syrian artists.
Yeah.
And there was quite a big section, actually, on Syria. And what was quite interesting was that you told me that, you know, growing up, your parents knew a lot of artists, so a lot of names
absolutely.
like Elias Zayat and, you know, all these others, they were familiar to you.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to go to, you know, a gallery to see an opening of an exhibition almost every week, multiple times a week sometimes, because there was so much happening back home at the time. You know, I could hardly keep up, honestly. So, and some of the artists we have, you know, their works in my parents' house as well. You know, so it was like, it was very close and very familiar. And I had the great honor and pleasure to go to the museum when it was still shut, and I had like a private tour of the exhibition, and I had the qanun and sat on the floor in front of some of the works and was trying to, you know, see what comes out, just you know, just teasing out whatever theme comes out, and then I went home and the whole process unfolded.
But it was so fascinating, because I was just sitting in the middle of the exhibition, watching Maya walk round and round, and it's at some point, you know, she would sit in front of a work, and, you know, you'd have the kind of tinkly, you know, qanun coming out. But the first work that so you ended up choosing two works, and they were not by Syrian artists, which was also interesting. And the first what you're seeing on the screen is a beautiful pair of abstract works. They're very small, by a Lebanese artist who's sadly died now, Huguette Callan, and they're called silent letters, and they're just very pure. You can see the pure lines, and this deep blue, and then a kind of grayish black, and something. I kept seeing you sort of circling
around it.
Okay, so what was it about this piece that did something?
It just drew me. It wasn't the piece of work that drew me instantly, you know, because I had the book as well of the exhibition, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go sit in front of this and this and this and this work. But then when I was there, it wasn't what I expected. I was like, oh gosh, this wasn't even my list, but I can't stop, you know, just hovering around it. And as you said, it's just a purity. It's just so simple. yet it's absolutely genius, you know, just like puts you in a, like almost a hypnotic state if you just sit with it for a little while. Yeah.
So this one then became
an invitation to daydream on my album.
Which is on your album.
Yes.
And then the second piece, Tim, can we have the second slide there? So this was Samir Abbasi, who's very, very interesting Iranian, but comes from this part of Iran, Ahwaz, which has a very strong Arabic tradition. She left home as a young girl and spent a lot of her life in the UK and then in America and so on. But what's really interesting, and I only discovered it because we had a talk with music, but with your concert, of course, and I hadn't realised that so. You'll see on her dress, so it's called Unraveling. It's from this kind of crazy series that she did called Chemical, Hysterical. And on the bottom of her dress, loads of songs by Kulthum, which was really extraordinary. But I only discovered during our session that she couldn't actually read Arabic.
Yes,
herself.
amazing.
And that she had actually copied those the words of the songs, the titles of the songs, actually from the album cover.
Amazing.
So that was just extraordinary. But so what was it about her that drew you?
She was the one who just like really demanded my attention and demanded it now. I just literally sat on the floor with my qanun in front of it, and I remember having some member from the museum walking in and thinking, what is she doing? It's just the intensity of the piece, you know. It's just her face. I just couldn't stop looking at her face, you know. She was it felt that there was a resonance with an emotional state that I've been through. And also, with all honesty, my logical brain thought that, okay, great, so I have, you know, names of really famous songs by the diva of Arabic music, Kulthum. You know, you have Fakkaruni, you have Hajartak, you have, you know, Ahmad Rami, Riyad al-Simbasi. And so I was like, okay, perhaps I could use those musical themes in the composition as an entry point. But the most important thing was that, you know, I was like, I need to do something with this. It was completely intuitive. When it comes to music, my logical brain comes only with the editing and arrangement. The place from which the music is born from is not logical. It's really intuitive. So all I have to do is listen, and sometimes it just takes me places and I go like, really? I just learned to go with it. So I went back home and I started, you know, I had the PDF that you sent me of the pieces, and I had them in front of me, and I was composing. And this piece was not just, did not want to come out for a week. You know, I was just trying and trying and trying. I kept trying to use the songs as an entry point to the composition. And I was like, okay, maybe if I just empty my head and just put all my expectations aside, and maybe if I go into meditation and prayer, which I often do before I play, maybe something will come out. And then I had the piece in front of me, I softened the gaze and then went in meditation, and then I instantly heard the word soul fever. And I was like, okay. I sat in the qanun, and in 4 hours it was done. It was just that, and it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating. When we had the premiere of the piece in Music to Stir the Soul event, which you all can watch, it's on YouTube with Dr. Venetia, the artist described her state, her emotional state, when she was doing this. It was a state of soul fever. It was that state of fever searching for a place of peace and belonging. It was absolutely astonishing to me. It felt so magical and so serendipitous that that's what the piece wanted to communicate to me, and that's what the artist's intention was behind the piece. So it was quite a humbling, magical adventure, really.
It was very, the whole thing for me and for all of us in the museum was really extraordinary. And then when we recorded the concert, that was fantastic. So you can actually hear that on the British Museum YouTube channel, Music to Stir the Soul. Well, Maya, thank you so much.
We're
going to hear both of these
yes, you
later.
will.
And it's been just such a pleasure to talk with you today.
Thank you so much.
And we're looking forward, all of us, to your concert very, very much.
Thank you. And I must add how grateful I am to your support and to the British Museum's support in helping me to get to this point. Yeah, I couldn't have done it without you. So thank you so much.
Well, it's completely our honor, really, absolutely. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.